The warning lights had been flashing red for 3 days now. Captain Daewon Park sat in his command chair and stared at the screens in front of him. Nothing he tried worked anymore. The ship's engines were dead. Life support was failing, and they were drifting in the emptiest part of space anyone could imagine. The Endeavour was a small survey ship. It belonged to Earth's Survey Corps, the group that explored new parts of the galaxy. Park and his crew of 7 had been mapping unknown star systems when everything went wrong. A plasma leak had burned through their main power core. They had managed to send out a distress signal, but that was 6 days ago. No one had answered. Park looked at his crew. Dr. Hanabike sat at her station running calculations over and over, trying to find a solution that did not exist. Lieutenant Kyung-Soo Lim checked their weapons, even though there was nothing to fight. The other crew members worked quietly, doing their jobs even though they all knew the truth. They were going to die out here. This region of space was called the Outer Reach. Most civilized species avoided it. There were no trade routes here, no colonies, no reason for anyone to come this far from the main galaxy. It was empty and dangerous and cold. Perfect place to die, Park thought bitterly. Humans were still new to the galaxy. They had met alien species only 40 years ago. Since then, Earth had been trying to find its place among the stars. But humans were small and weak compared to the great empires. They had no special technology, no powerful weapons. They were just trying to survive and learn. Park had grown up hearing stories about the galaxy, about the mighty Ordathi Empire with their massive warships, about the Vryn traders who controlled half the trade routes, about the Hegemon Council that ruled over everything. Humans were nothing compared to them. Just newcomers that nobody really cared about, and now they would die like newcomers too, forgotten in empty space. Dr. Bike suddenly looked up from her console. Her eyes were wide. "Captain," she said quietly, "I'm picking up a ship." Park felt his heart jump. He leaned forward. "Where?" 2 million kilometers. It's coming toward us." Beck's fingers flew across her keyboard. "It's a Vryn cargo hauler. Old model. Looks damaged." Hope and fear mixed in Park's chest. The Vryn were known throughout the galaxy as the most practical species alive. They never did anything unless there was profit in it. They were traders, business people, calculators. Everything was about credits and contracts. If a Vryn ship stopped to help them, it would demand payment. Payment they could not give. But maybe, just maybe, they could negotiate something. Anything was better than dying. The Vryn ship came closer. It was indeed old and battered. Parts of its hull were patched with mismatched metal. One of its cargo pods was missing. This was not a wealthy trader. This was someone barely surviving themselves. A communication signal came through. Park activated it. The face that appeared on the screen was insectoid. Large compound eyes, mandibles instead of a mouth. The Vryn looked old, tired. When she spoke, her voice came through a translator that made it sound flat and mechanical. "Human vessel. I am Thelis. I received your distress signal. What is your situation?" Park chose his words carefully. "Our main power core is destroyed. Life support is failing. We have perhaps 2 days left." Thelis's mandibles clicked together. "I see. What can you offer in trade for assistance?" Here it was, the moment of truth. Park looked at Beck. She shook her head slightly. They had nothing of value. Their survey data was worthless out here. Their equipment was standard. They had no rare metals, no advanced technology. Nothing a trader would want. "We have nothing," Park said simply. "We are a survey ship. We have basic equipment and survey data. That is all." The screen was silent. Thelis stared at them with those huge compound eyes. Park could see her ship on the sensors. It was already turning away, of course. Why would she waste her time and resources on humans who could not pay? Dr. Bike suddenly stood up. "Please," she said, her voice breaking. "We're very far from home. We have families waiting for us, children. We just want to go home, please." It was not dignified. It was begging. But they were dying, and dignity did not matter anymore. Thelis's ship stopped turning. The Vryn trader was silent for a long moment. Then she spoke, and her voice was different. Softer somehow, even through the mechanical translator. "Far from home," Thelis repeated. "Yes, I remember this feeling." Her ship changed course. It moved toward the Endeavour. Park could barely believe it. "I have emergency power cells," Thelis said. "Old but functional. They will give you enough power to reach the nearest station. I also have navigation data for the safest route. I will transfer both to you." But we cannot pay, Park said again, wanting to be honest. We have nothing to give you. I know. Thelis's mandibles moved in what might have been a smile. You owe nothing. Consider it a gift from one traveler to another. Over the next hour, Thelis guided them through the process. She sent over 2 power cells from her own emergency supplies. She transferred navigation data that showed them the safest path to a station called New Horizon. She even talked them through installing the power cells, patient and clear. When the Endeavor's systems came back online, the crew cheered. Lights turned on. Air started flowing again. The engines hummed with new power. They would live. Park opened the communication channel again. Thelis, we cannot thank you enough. What you did today, he struggled to find words. How can we repay you? You cannot, Thelis said simply. And you do not need to. Safe travels, humans. May you find your way home. Her ship began to pull away. Wait, Park called out. Will we see you again? Can we contact you? There was a pause. Then Thelis said, I do not think so. I am very old and very tired. This was my last run. But I am glad it ended with helping someone. Goodbye, Captain Park. The channel closed. Thelis's ship accelerated away, disappearing into the vast darkness of space. The crew of the Endeavor watched her go. Lieutenant Lim was the first to speak. That was incredible, he said quietly. I've never heard of a Vryn doing something like that. Dr. Beck was staring at her console with a strange expression. Captain, she said slowly, I'm reading Thelis's ship signature. It's showing severe radiation contamination, the kind you get from a failing reactor core. Park felt something cold settle in his stomach. How bad? Fatal, she was dying. Those power cells she gave us were probably her last working ones. Beck's voice shook. She gave us her emergency supplies when she needed them herself. The bridge was silent. Park stood up from his command chair. He looked at each member of his crew. When he spoke, his voice was firm and clear. Remember her name, he said. Thelis. Remember what she did for us. When we get back to Earth, we find her family. We find her people. And we repay this debt. Lieutenant Lim frowned. Sir, with respect, she said we owed her nothing. And she's probably not going to make it. How do we repay a dead alien who never asked for anything? Park looked at him steadily. We're human, Lieutenant. We don't forget the people who save us, even if they don't ask for anything. Especially if they don't ask for anything. He turned back to the view screen, looking out at the stars where Thelis had disappeared. Set course for New Horizon Station, he ordered, and start gathering every piece of information you can about Thelis and the Vryn. We have a debt to repay. The Endeavor turned and began its journey toward safety. Behind them, the outer reach remained dark and empty and cold. But something had changed in that emptiness. A dying trader had shown kindness to strangers. And those strangers were human. The galaxy would soon learn what that meant. 6 months had passed since the Endeavor returned to Earth. Captain Park had written his report, attended his debriefing, and received commendations for bringing his crew home safely. Everyone told him he was a hero. But Park did not feel like a hero. He felt like a man with an unpaid debt. His superiors did not understand. The incident is closed, they told him. The traitor is dead. There's nothing more to do. But Park could not let it go. Every night he saw Thelis's face on his screen, heard her voice saying, I remember this feeling. She had died to save them. The least he could do was remember her. He used his personal leave time. He spent his own credits. He hired information brokers, contacted Vryn trade offices, searched through shipping records. Slowly, piece by piece, he learned about Thelis. She had been part of a small Vryn colony on the edge of their territory. The colony was called Telcor 4 and it was struggling. Big Vryn corporations were taking over the trade routes. Small independent traders like Thelis were being pushed out. She had been making her last cargo run when she found the Endeavor. Her family was still on Telcor 4 trying to survive. Dr. Bake joined his search. She felt the same obligation, the same need to do something. Together, they spent countless hours gathering information. Lieutenant Lim thought they were crazy at first, but eventually even he started helping. Something about Thelis's sacrifice had touched all of them. They learned something important about Vryn culture. The Vryn did not understand gratitude the way humans did. For them, everything was a transaction. You give something, you get something. Debts were contracts, nothing more. The idea of repaying someone who had given freely, who had asked for nothing made no sense to them. They won't understand what we're trying to do, Beck said one evening, sitting in Park's quarters. To them, Thelis made a poor business decision. She gave away resources for no return. Her family probably thinks she was foolish. Then we teach them, Park said firmly. We show them that some things matter more than profit. After 8 months of searching and planning, Park and Beck took a transport ship to the Vryn territories. They traveled for 2 weeks, moving from station to station, getting closer to the outer reach. Finally, they arrived at Telcor 4. The colony was small and run down. The buildings were old. The docking facilities needed repair. Ships came and went, but they were all small cargo haulers like Thelis's had been. This was not a wealthy place. These were Vryn who were barely getting by. The colony leader was named Koresh. He was Thelis's distant relative, though the Vryn did not think of family the same way humans did. When Park and Beck requested a meeting, Koresh agreed, probably out of curiosity more than anything else. They met in a simple office. Koresh sat behind a desk, his insectoid features unreadable to human eyes. Park and Beck sat across from him. Between them were 3 cargo containers that Park had brought from Earth. I am Captain Daewon Park, Park began. This is Dr. Hannah Bayek. We're here because of Thelis. Koresh's mandibles clicked. Thelis is dead. She died 8 months ago when her ship's reactor failed. We know, Beck said gently. She saved our lives before she died. She gave us her emergency power cells. She shared her navigation data. She asked for nothing in return. That was her choice, Koresh said. His voice through the translator was flat. A poor business decision. She could have sold those resources. Park felt a flash of anger, but he controlled it. This was not cruelty. This was just how Vryn thought. We're human, Park said. We don't see it that way. When someone saves our lives, we remember. We honor that sacrifice, and we try to repay it. He gestured to the cargo containers. These are for you. For Thelis's colony. Advanced engine components from Earth. Medical supplies. Star charts from our recent explorations. They're worth about 50,000 credits. Koresh stared at the containers. Then at Park. Then back at the containers. What do you want in return? He asked suspiciously. Nothing, Park said. Nothing. Koresh leaned forward. You traveled hundreds of light years. You bring expensive supplies. You want nothing? What is the real purpose of this? Beck spoke up. The purpose is gratitude. Thelis helped us when she didn't have to. She saved us when we had nothing to give her. We want to honor her memory by helping her people. That's all. Koresh was silent for a long time. His compound eyes studied them. Park could not read his expression, but he could sense confusion. Finally, the Vryn spoke. I do not understand your species, Koresh said slowly. Thelis gained nothing from helping you. There is no transaction to balance. Your behavior is illogical. Maybe, Park admitted, but it's who we are. We don't forget kindness. We don't forget the people who help us, even if they're gone. Koresh clicked his mandibles again. After another long pause, he said, Very well. I accept your gifts, but I still do not understand. You don't have to understand, Beck said with a smile. Just accept that humans keep their promises, even the promises we make to ourselves. Park and Beck spent 3 days on Telcor 4. They helped install the engine components. Beck worked with the colony's medical staff, showing them how to use the new supplies. Park talked with the traders, sharing Earth star charts and discussing safe routes. The younger Vryn were curious about humans. They had heard stories about Earth, but they had never met humans before. They asked questions. Why did humans care so much about emotions? Why did they make decisions based on feelings instead of logic? Why did they travel so far for someone they barely knew? Beck tried to explain. Because connection matters. Because kindness matters. Because we're all travelers in this galaxy. And sometimes the only thing that separates survival from death is whether someone chooses to help. Before they left, Koresh met with them one more time. He seemed different now. Less suspicious. More thoughtful. The supplies you brought will help us secure 3 new trade routes, he said. That is significant. You have given us an advantage. Good, Park said. Thelis deserves to be remembered by a thriving colony, not a failing one. Koresh tilted his head. You speak of her as if her memory has value. It does, Park said simply. To us it does. As their transport ship pulled away from Telcor 4, Beck looked out the viewport at the small colony growing smaller in the distance. Do you think we made a difference? She asked. Park considered the question. Maybe, maybe not. But we kept our promise. We honored the debt. That's what matters. What they did not know was that word was spreading. Vryn traders talked to each other. They shared stories and news. And the story of two humans who traveled across the galaxy to give gifts to strangers, asking nothing in return, in memory of a dead trader, was strange enough to be interesting. Other species heard the story too. Some laughed. Humans were naive, they said. Foolish, wasting resources on sentiment. But others, the ones who had been shown mercy once, the ones who remembered kindness, they listened more carefully. Maybe these humans were different. Maybe they actually meant what they said. Maybe in a galaxy where everything was about profit and power, there was a species that valued something else. The galaxy was watching, and humans, without even knowing it, were building a reputation that would soon be tested. 2 years had passed since Park and Beck visited Telcor 4. Life had returned to normal for most people. Park had been promoted to Commodore. Beck was teaching at Earth's Xenobiology Institute. Lieutenant Lim commanded his own security detail. The crew of the Endeavor had scattered across the galaxy, each following their own path. But the galaxy had changed in small ways. The Vryn colony at Telcor 4 was doing better. Their trade routes were profitable. Other small colonies had started asking Earth for partnerships. Human merchants were welcomed in places where they had been ignored before. Something was shifting, though no one could quite say what. Then the message came. It arrived at Earth's diplomatic office on a Tuesday morning. It was marked urgent. The sender was Koresh of Telcor 4. Ambassador Jinha Song was the first to read it. What he read made his blood run cold. The Ordathi Empire was expanding. They were moving into the outer reach, claiming territory, taking control of colonies. They were known throughout the galaxy as conquerors. When the Ordathi arrived, they took everything: resources, technology, people. Species that resisted were enslaved. Species that surrendered were absorbed into the empire as workers, barely better than slaves. And Telcor 4 was directly in their path. Ambassador Song called an emergency meeting. Park was summoned from his command post. Beck was pulled from her classroom. Lim came from a training mission. Earth's military commanders gathered. The Council of Ministers assembled. Everyone who mattered was in the room. Song read Koresh's message aloud. It was short and bitter. To the humans of Earth, the Ordathi come. We have asked our trading partners for help. None will come. They say it is too dangerous. They say Telcor 4 is not worth fighting for. You claim debt to Thelis. We are calling that debt due. We need help. We expect nothing. The room fell silent. Everyone understood what this meant. Koresh was not really asking for help. He was saying goodbye. He knew humans would not come either. Why would they? Earth was small, weak. Fighting the Ordathi would be suicide. Admiral Wei, head of Earth's Space Defense Force, spoke first. The Ordathi have 50 capital ships in that region. We have 12 modern ships total. If we send a fleet to Telcor 4, we will lose it. And for what? A minor colony that means nothing to Earth's security. Minister Rivera nodded. The Ordathi are a major power. If we oppose them, they will remember. They will target Earth. We cannot risk our homeworld for a Vryn colony. Others agreed. The arguments were logical, reasonable, smart. Earth had to think about its own survival first. Sentiment was not strategy. Then Ambassador Song stood up. He was older than most people in the room. He had gray hair and tired eyes. But when he spoke, his voice was strong. You are all correct, he said. Tactically, strategically, economically, you are right. Helping Telcor 4 is a poor decision. But there is one thing you have not considered. He looked around the room, meeting each person's eyes. Our word, our reputation, our honor. For 2 years, we have been building something in this galaxy. Species are starting to trust us. They are starting to believe that humans are different, that we keep our promises, that we honor our debts. If we abandon the Vryn now, all of that disappears. We prove that we are just like everyone else. And our word becomes worthless. Park stood up too. Ambassador Song is right. Thelis died saving us. We told Koresh that humans remember kindness. If we do nothing now, those words mean nothing. And if our words mean nothing, then we have nothing. Admiral Wei shook his head. Commodore Park, you are letting emotion cloud your judgment. Dozens of our people will die. For what? For honor? That is not enough. Honor is everything, Park said quietly. Without it, what are we? Just another species fighting for survival. Just another empire taking what we can get. Is that what Earth should be? The debate raged for hours. Half the room supported intervention. Half opposed it. News of the debate leaked to the public. Within days, protests erupted across Earth. Some people demanded action. Others demanded caution. Families of military personnel begged the government not to send their loved ones to die for aliens. Dr. Baek gave an interview that went viral. Thelis was dying, she said, tears in her eyes. She had nothing, but she gave us everything. She saved us because it was the right thing to do. Now we have to decide who we are. Are we the species that remembers, or are we the species that forgets when it becomes inconvenient? Finally, after 2 weeks of debate, Earth's council voted. It was close. Very close. But they decided Earth would send a fleet to Telcor 4, not a large fleet. They could not spare that many ships, but enough to make a statement. Enough to show the galaxy that Earth kept its promises. Commodore Park requested permission to lead the fleet. His superiors tried to refuse. You will probably die, they told him. This is a suicide mission. Let someone else go. Park's response was simple. Then I will die with honor intact. Better that than live knowing I abandoned the people who needed me. They approved his request. Lieutenant Lim volunteered to go with him. So did half the original Endeavour crew. Dr. Beck wanted to go too, but Park asked her to stay. Someone needs to tell our story if we do not come back, he said. The fleet assembled. 5 warships, not much against the Ordathy, but they were modern, fast, well-armed, and crewed by people who believed in what they were doing. That had to count for something. Before they left, Park sent a message to Koresh. We are coming. Humans do not forget. Hold on. The journey took 3 weeks. During that time, Park drilled his crews constantly. They practiced tactics. They studied Ordathy battle formations. They prepared for every scenario they could imagine. But everyone knew the truth. They were outnumbered and outgunned. This was not a mission they were supposed to survive. Lim came to Park's quarters one night. They sat in silence for a while, drinking terrible coffee from the ship's dispenser. Do you think we will make it? Lim asked. Park was honest. No, probably not. But that is not why we are going. Then why are we going? Park looked at him. Because someone saved our lives. Because we made a promise. Because if humans do not stand for something, we stand for nothing. And because, Lieutenant, I would rather die fighting for what is right than live knowing I did nothing. Lim nodded slowly. I am scared, he admitted. So am I, Park said. Fear means we are human. It means we understand what we are risking. But we are going anyway. That is courage. They arrived at Telcor 4 3 days before the Ordathy fleet. The colony was preparing for the worst. Families were being evacuated on what few ships they had. The Vryn were not fighters. They knew they could not win. When Earth's fleet appeared, Koresh could barely believe it. He opened a communication channel to Park's flagship. You came, Koresh said. His voice was different than before. There was something new in it. Wonder maybe, or hope. We said we would, Park replied. Humans keep their promises. Now let's show the Ordathy what that means. The Ordathy fleet was coming, and Earth was ready to fight. The Ordathy fleet arrived like a storm. 15 warships, each 3 times the size of Park's largest vessel. They moved in perfect formation, confident and unstoppable. They had done this 100 times before. Take the colony, strip its resources, move on. Simple, easy, routine. But this time, 5 human ships stood in their way. The Ordathy commander opened a communication channel. His face filled the screen, reptilian and cold. When he spoke, his voice dripped with contempt. Human vessels. You're in Ordathy expansion territory. Leave now or be destroyed. This is your only warning. Park stood on the bridge of his flagship, hands clasped behind his back. He had practiced this moment in his mind 1,000 times. Now it was real. Ordathy Commander, this is Commodore Daewon Park of Earth. Telcor 4 is under human protection. If you attack this colony, you attack Earth. I suggest you reconsider. The Ordathy commander laughed. It was a harsh, grating sound. Humans, you have been in the galaxy for 40 years. You are nothing. You have no power, no influence, no right to make threats. Leave or we will add your ships to our collection. Then you will have to take them, Park said calmly. We are not leaving, he closed the channel. Around him, his bridge crew prepared for battle. Lieutenant Lim checked weapon systems. The navigation officer calculated firing solutions. Everyone knew this was impossible, but they were here anyway. All ships, Park broadcast to his small fleet. Remember why we are here. Remember Thelos. Remember that honor is worth fighting for. If this is our last battle, let us make it one they never forget. The Ordathi attacked. The battle was brutal from the first moment. Human ships were faster, more maneuverable, but the Ordathi had overwhelming firepower. Park's fleet scattered, using tactics Earth had perfected over centuries of warfare. They did not fight fair. They fought smart. Minefields appeared where Ordathi ships expected clear space. Human vessels darted in and out, striking and retreating before the enemy could respond. They targeted engines and weapons, trying to disable rather than destroy. Every second they survived was a victory. On the surface of Telkor 4, Koresh watched the battle with the rest of his colony. They had never seen anything like this. The humans were outnumbered 3-1. They should have been destroyed in minutes, but they fought with a ferocity that shocked the Vryn. Koresh opened a channel to all Vryn networks. "Watch this," he broadcast. "Watch what humans do. They are dying for us, for a debt most species would have forgotten. They fight because they made a promise, because one of us showed them kindness years ago. Watch and remember." The battle raged for 3 days. Human ships took damage. One was destroyed, its crew lost. Another was crippled and had to retreat. But they held. Impossibly, they held. Park's flagship took a direct hit on the second day. Half his crew was killed. The ship's reactor was failing. But he stayed in the fight, commanding from a backup bridge with emergency power. Dr. Bayek's research vessel, which had arrived with medical supplies, was caught in crossfire. It exploded. But Beck survived, rescued by a Vryn cargo hauler that braved the battle to save her. When she recovered, she immediately started treating the wounded, both human and Vryn. Lieutenant Lim led a desperate boarding action on the 4th day. He and 20 Marines used an escape pod to ram an Ordathi cruiser. They fought through the ship's corridors, planting explosives on key systems. Half of them died, but they disabled the cruiser, taking one of the Ordathi's biggest ships out of the fight. The Ordathi commander was furious. This was supposed to be simple, but these humans refused to die. They refused to surrender. They fought with tactics he had never seen. Every attack cost him ships and soldiers. This minor colony was becoming expensive. On the 6th day, something changed. New ships appeared on the sensors. At first, Park thought it was Ordathi reinforcements. His heart sank. They could not fight more enemies. But then the identification signals came through. Vryn corporate fleets, 12 of them. They were not military ships, but they were armed, and they were taking position alongside the human fleet. More ships arrived. Shinori traders, Calyx explorers, species that Park had never heard of. They came from all over the outer reach, small fleets, independent ships, merchant vessels. None of them were warriors, but all of them were here. A communication came through. It was a joint message from all the new arrivals. "We have watched what humans do. We have seen them honor their debts. We have seen them fight for gratitude, not conquest. We have seen them sacrifice for people they barely know. The galaxy has never seen this before. We stand with Earth. We stand with Telkor 4. Park stared at the screen, unable to speak. Around him, his crew was cheering. They were not alone anymore. The Ordathi commander faced a new calculation. He still had military superiority, but the political situation had changed. This was no longer a simple conquest. This had become a symbol. The entire galaxy was watching. News of the battle was spreading across every network. The Hegemon Council, the galaxy's ruling body, contacted the Ordathi fleet directly. Their message was clear. "Stand down, negotiate, this has gone too far." The Ordathi commander had no choice. Continuing the battle would cost too much in too many ways. He contacted Park one final time. "You have won nothing, human," he said bitterly. "You survived. That is all." Park, bloodied and exhausted, smiled. "We did not come here to win. We came here to keep a promise. And that is exactly what we did." The Ordathi fleet withdrew. The battle was over. Park's ship limped back to Telkor 4. The colony was damaged but standing. Koresh met him at the docking bay. The Vryn leader approached slowly, then did something no human had ever seen a Vryn do. He touched his head to Park's chest, a Vryn gesture of deep respect. "I understand now," Koresh said quietly. Your species measures wealth differently than mine. We count resources and profit. You count debts of honor. And you have shown the galaxy that your currency has value. Park put his hand on Koresh's shoulder. Thelis saved us. We could do no less for her people. Word of the battle spread across the galaxy like wildfire. Humans had done the impossible. They had stood against the Ordathi Empire for honor. They had turned a military loss into a moral victory. They had shown that keeping promises mattered more than profit or power. Ambassador Song arrived 2 weeks later to negotiate with the Hegemon Council. They offered Earth a seat at the diplomatic table. Humanity was no longer just newcomers. They were players now. Important ones, but the cost had been high. Hundreds of human soldiers had died. Earth's economy was strained. Ships were destroyed. Families mourned. Someone asked Park if it had been worth it. He stood on the surface of Telcor 4, looking at the repaired colony, at the Vryn working alongside humans to rebuild, at the ships from a dozen species docked peacefully together. "Ask me that question again," he said, "when my grandchildren inherit a galaxy where kindness matters." 5 years had passed since the Battle of Telcor 4. The galaxy looked different now, not in obvious ways. The same empires still existed. The same trade routes still operated. But something fundamental had changed. Something invisible but powerful. Humans had created a new kind of power. Not military strength, not economic dominance, something that the galaxy had never really seen before. The power of trust. Species that had been ignored by the great empires now sought partnerships with Earth. Small colonies knew that if they befriended humans, those humans would not abandon them. Minor traders understood that doing business with Earth meant fair treatment. The word had spread. Humans keep their promises. Humans remember kindness. Humans will fight for their friends. This had become a new kind of currency in galactic politics. Human favor was valuable, more valuable sometimes than credits or technology, because everyone knew that if you helped a human, they would help you back. Not because of contracts, not because of profit, but because that was who they were. The Vryn colonies had formed a federation with Earth. It was called the Vryn Human Alliance. They combined Vryn commercial efficiency with human innovation and loyalty. Together they were becoming a significant force in the outer reach. Koresh was now the Alliance's first representative, working closely with Earth's diplomatic corps. Even the Ordathi Empire had changed its approach to Earth. They did not apologize for the battle. That was not their way, but they opened diplomatic channels. They proposed trade agreements. They recognized that fighting humans was expensive in ways they had not anticipated, not because humans were strong, but because humans made friends, and those friends would come when called. On Earth, a new monument stood in Geneva, the capital of the United Earth Council. It was a simple statue, an insectoid figure, mandibles slightly parted, holding a power cell. The inscription at the base read, "To Thelis, who gave everything for nothing, humanity remembers." The monument had become famous across the galaxy. Species from hundreds of worlds made pilgrimages to see it. They wanted to understand these strange humans. They wanted to see what kindness looked like when it was honored. Some came as tourists. Some came as believers. All left changed. On the day of the monument's 5th anniversary, a ceremony was held. Admiral Park stood there in his dress uniform, older now, with gray hair at his temples. Dr. Beck stood beside him, a professor of xenobiology and humanities leading expert on Vryn culture. Lieutenant Lim, now Captain Lim, commanded the honor guard. Koresh gave a speech. His voice came through a translator, but emotion carried through anyway. 5 years ago, I did not understand humans. I thought Thelis was foolish. I thought Park and Beck were naive. I thought gratitude was illogical. I was wrong. Humans have taught the galaxy something we had forgotten, or perhaps something we never knew. That kindness has power, that memory has value, that some debts cannot be measured in credits. He paused, looking at the statue. Thelis never knew what she started. She helped some strangers because she remembered being far from home. She died thinking it was a small thing, but humans made it big. They made it matter. They turned one act of kindness into a movement that changed the galaxy. The crowd applauded. Beings from dozens of species stood together, united by a simple idea. That kindness deserved to be remembered, but not everyone was happy with the changes. The old powers, the 3 empires that had dominated the Hegemon Council for centuries, watched humanity's growing influence with concern. They had built their power on strength and fear and control. Humans were building power on friendship and trust, and that was threatening. Behind closed doors, they began to coordinate. How could they contain this? How could they stop humans from changing the rules of galactic politics? They could not attack Earth directly. That would only prove humanity's point, but they could work in the shadows. Undermine, sabotage, turn species against each other. Ambassador Song, now Earth's first galactic counselor, saw the danger. He met with Park and Bayek in his office overlooking Earth. "We have proven we honor our debts," Song said. "We have shown we fight for our friends. But now comes the harder test. Can we navigate galactic politics without losing what makes us human? Can we be diplomatic without becoming cynical? Can we compromise without betraying our values?" Park considered the question. "I do not know. But we have to try. The alternative is to become like everyone else. To treat kindness as a tool instead of a principle. I would rather fail trying to be good than succeed at being ordinary." Beck nodded. "We have something most species do not. We have each other. We have our allies. We have people across the galaxy who believe in what we represent. As long as we remember why we do this, we will not lose our way." Song smiled. "Then we continue. One act of kindness at a time. One kept promise at a time. We change the galaxy by being ourselves." That evening, Park returned to his quarters. A message was waiting for him. It was a distress call from a small mining colony he had never heard of. They were under attack by pirates. They had no defenses. They were calling anyone who would listen. Park called his bridge crew together. They assembled quickly, responding to the alert. Captain Lim looked at the message. "Sir, we have no obligation to help them. They are not part of our alliance. They have never helped Earth. They cannot pay us," Park smiled. "And that is exactly why we help them, Captain. Someday someone will need us who cannot repay us. Someone will be stranded and alone, just like we were 5 years ago, and we will help them anyway. Because that is what humans do." He turned to his crew. "Set course for the mining colony. Maximum speed. We have people to save." The ship's engines roared to life. As they accelerated toward the colony, Park looked out at the stars. Somewhere out there, Thelis had made a choice. She had decided to help strangers even though it cost her everything. And that choice had changed the galaxy. Not through conquest, not through domination, but through kindness, through memory. Through the simple act of keeping a promise, other species were starting to understand. They were starting to see that maybe there was a better way, that maybe strength was not just about weapons and wealth, that maybe the most powerful force in the galaxy was the bond between people who helped each other. It would not be easy. There would be setbacks, betrayals, losses. The old powers would fight to maintain their control. Some species would try to exploit human generosity. Some allies would disappoint. That was inevitable, but humans would continue. They would keep helping, keep remembering, keep honoring their debts, because that was who they were. Not perfect, not invincible, just persistent in their belief that kindness mattered. Dr. Beck once said in a lecture that went viral across the galaxy, "Other species ask what humans want. What is our goal? What are we trying to achieve?" The answer is simple. We want a galaxy where no one dies alone in empty space, where kindness is not weakness, where helping a stranger is not foolish. We want to build a civilization based not on who has the biggest guns, but on who keeps their promises. It was ambitious, maybe impossible, but humans had always been good at attempting the impossible. As Park's ship raced toward the besieged mining colony, he thought about everything that had happened. About a dying trader who showed mercy, about a captain who refused to forget, about a galaxy that was slowly, grudgingly learning a new way. The communication officer called out, "Sir, we are receiving messages from other ships. Multiple vessels are responding to the distress call. Vryn traders, Shinori escorts, even some Ordathi merchants." Park felt something warm in his chest. Pride, maybe, or hope. "Tell them we are glad for the company," he said, "and that we are all in this together." The ships converged on the mining colony from different directions. Human, Vryn, Shinori, species that had once been strangers, species that had learned from humanity's example. They came not for profit, not for conquest, but because it was the right thing to do. The pirates fled when they saw the response. They had expected easy prey. Instead, they found a galaxy that was changing, a galaxy where kindness was becoming common, where helping others was no longer seen as weakness, After the colony was secured, the miners sent a message to Park. "Thank you. We do not know how to repay you." Park's response was simple. "You do not need to repay us. Just remember this day, and when someone else needs help, be there for them. That is how we repay kindness. By passing it forward, years would pass, decades, centuries, but the lesson would remain. Humans had shown the galaxy that gratitude was not weakness, that keeping promises had power, that remembering kindness could reshape worlds. And it all started with one dying trader, drifting through empty space, who chose to help some strangers far from home. Thelis never knew she would change the galaxy, but humans made sure she would never be forgotten, because that is what humans do. They never overlook a kindness, and their gratitude can reshape worlds.